Okay, you're on.
Am I audible? Do I sound like you can hear me clearly?
Why can't you see me?
I can't see you too well, but I can hear you.
Wave your hand. Yes, I see you move. I see you move. It worked. Nobody moved. Nobody moved from wherever they are. Everybody, all of you are in the right place.
So this is take 16, no 17 of Stories with Shastri. I have Anu SIRAUTHIA coming on board today, and Anu is someone I've known for a couple of years, and she's been a neighbor and a friend, a very dear friend of mine, and she ended up quitting her job to actually live sustainably and help other people understand what it means, and she started her own organization. So let's talk to her a little more to find out what it means to actually go zero waste, what living sustainably actually means, because I don't know, I mean, I understand it a little bit but not very much. I'm just about to add her to this.
Hi. Hello. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Did you see the rains yesterday?
I did. It rained the whole night. It was wonderful. Yeah. I was worried about my plants, but they all survived, and I think they liked the rain.
Yeah, I think mine did too. So I was about that happening.
Yeah, I can see a lot of flowers as well today. So good.
Really?
Yeah.
Send me something later.
I really do. Yeah.
So, could you tell my listeners a little more about who you are and what you do?
Sure. So I'm Anu, and I live in Pune. I'm based in Pune. What I do, I'm an environmental sustainability activist, if I can call myself that. Never intended to be one, but I think organically it happened. So I run an organization called SIRAUTHIA, Conscious Living. And essentially, we take a three-pronged approach to sustainability. It's a very empathetic approach, not just to the environment and the ecosystems, but also to humans. So typically, what we would say is that if you're an activist, or if you really believe in sustainability or environment, you're either this or that. But it's about marrying the two and saying, what's the best way forward. So as for Dharani, we run a lot of education and awareness sessions on what sustainability really is, because there are different definitions to it, and the way people understand it is very different. For example, there would be sustainability for the urban population, and there's also sustainability for the rural population. So, and they're two different things. There could be sustainability of a process. There could also be sustainability of a product. So, getting everyone to understand what sustainability really means, and essentially help people reduce their impact on the environment from home. So, understanding what sustainability could mean to individuals and how they can actually help, how they can reduce their own negative impact or the consequences of their everyday actions on the environment. So there's a lot of education and awareness that happens through that. The second thing is that Manu and I are involved in developing a model eco farm outside of Pune, and it's called the SIRAUTHIA Eco Farm. And we're building it using permaculture practices and principles. So the idea is to have a self-sustaining ecosystem. You can call it an off-grid kind of a setup, where people can actually experience natural living and sustainable living. That it's not just a concept, but people can actually touch, feel, see, live that kind of a lifestyle. So that's the second bit of SIRAUTHIA. And the third bit is, of course, it's not easy. We did realize over the period of time that it's not easy for everyone to lead a sustainable lifestyle. It could be the situations, the circumstances. It could be one's own limited ability to actually adopt practices. So how do you make the switch easy and simple for them? So these are alternatives that we've come up with, that you just use those alternatives and you can get started from home, right from the word go. So essentially that's what I've been doing. In the past, I've been an HR professional for more than 17 years. I was working as an instructional designer and a learning consultant. Worked with big corporates, but I think the heart was always with nature and just looking to the sky. So I think this happened.
What made you quit? Did you just wake up one day and said, okay, I'm not doing this anymore? Or what was that point for you where you realized that, okay, I need to stop, working for the corporates and doing something like this?
It was a gradual process actually, Sabha. I think it started with Vedant. So after Vedant was born, as a mother, a lot of us would identify that we tend to become very protective. We want everything to be healthy. We want everything to be safe, and we want everything to be nice and to the best for the child. So I think it started from there. I started looking for alternatives which were healthy options. So that's how it started, and then it moved to organic living, where we moved to organic produce and products. Then we moved to when I started reading up more about ingredients and the practices with which all of these products are processed, whether it's home care or personal care or food or whatever. I realized that there's only so much that you can trust another brand or something which is available off the shelf. So then automatically I started doing a lot of DIY stuff, and so that then got into the zero waste living practices. And at the same time, I think about in 2013, we watched this documentary. It's about a family in California who's living, they're living on a 10,000 square feet plot of land. And it's a family of 4 grown-ups. And it's a self-sustaining ecosystem where they're able to produce food not just for themselves, but for they're able to supply to restaurants. And they're creating their own fuel. Yeah, they're off-grid. They're the most water resistant and resilient, so they have a crop all year round. So that really got us thinking that if this is what one needs and this is what we are striving for, then why not just go for it? So 2013 is when the journey started, and I think so since from then to now we upskilled ourselves. It's not as urban dwellers and people who've always lived in the city. Honestly, I knew nothing about gardening. I knew nothing about, how to sow, what to do. I've just been to my village where, my side of the family, especially my dad's side of the family, they're all farmers. And a lot of them are still in the village and they're farming. So I would just go to the farm and, enjoy the little, harvesting and this stuff. But other than that, no experience whatsoever. And I think the same went for Manu as well. So gradually we started experimenting. Our first experiment was a compost pit. That was the simplest thing to do. And then we met a beautiful neighbor, Surapai auntie. So she was a huge inspiration. So I think we started meeting people along the journey who helped us understand more about this kind of a lifestyle, helped us with our experiments, and it was encouraging. And in 2019, finally, we kind of zeroed in on the farm. We said, okay, this is it. We have to do it. But before that, we studied about permaculture. We studied about creating natural ecosystems, mimicking forests and so on. So that's how. So it's not been, we need to quit our job right now. It started in 2013, but we always knew that this is going to be plan A and the job is going to be the plan B. And that's all.
That sounds pretty nice. I've seen you personally on this journey, so that's why I think I hold it close to my heart. But there's some things that even I have found myself, not being able to learn in the sense of, for example, what does going zero waste exactly mean?
Okay. So zero waste does not mean that you're not creating any waste. Okay, first of all, let me just clarify that. Zero waste essentially means that whatever waste that you're creating, you are reusing it, you are repurposing it, or you're making it input for something else. You're making it food for something else. So essentially, you're not sending anything to the landfill.
Right.
You're not sending something away, because there is no away. Everything is there in the planet. You're not sending it away. So that is zero waste lifestyle. And if you want to lead that particular lifestyle, it's very essential to also understand, the kind of, you have to get into the details of what is it that you're using on a day-to-day basis, right? Because when we look at everything from a day-to-day, life, Either it's man-made or it's nature-made, right? Like our fruits and vegetables, everything that we eat, it's all nature-based, right? So it comes from a natural system. And then the rest of the stuff, which is man-made, it comes from an industrial system.
Right.
Okay. Now, the thing with the natural system is that, everything is designed in a very circular manner. So if you look at the life cycle, it comes, it goes, and it feeds into something else. A beautiful example is the forest. A beautiful example is, how the water cycle, which we are taught as kids in schools, right? So these are examples of it. Now, if we look at the industrial system, it's very linear in nature. Everything is produced, taken from the earth, and then we consume it, we produce it, we consume it, and then what happens after its end life? It goes into the landfill. Right? Very rarely do we find anything which is very readily compostable, or it can become food for the soil or the water or any of the life that we see around. Right? So zero-waste living is essentially an understanding of these two systems, and then adopting or picking up products, picking up things that you want to use every day, so that you're not making it linear. You're getting into the circular system. So that's what it really means. It's very simple as that. It's about coming back to the circle. So nature is cyclical in nature. It's circular in nature. So that's all that it means. It doesn't mean anything more than that.
Okay, because I know a lot of people think about it, being like, okay, not producing only a little bit of waste, and then I wonder what happens to the rest of it. Coming back to permaculture, what exactly is that?
So permaculture is essentially, creating a self-sustaining ecosystem where you're mimicking forests. Right? If you look at a forest, every organism in a forest has a function, right? And it's about diversity. It's never mono. You would not see just one kind of a tree everywhere. It's a lot of diversity. You would see these guilds coming together, wherein the smallest and the shortest plant would be right in the front, followed by a slightly taller one, and the biggest tree right in the middle. Right? Yeah. So there's an order to it. There is a certain design to a forest, right? So when you start mimicking that, and when you start applying it to your own, let's say, piece of land or your home, in order to create a self-sustaining system or a design, that is permaculture. Right? Permaculture also is permanent agriculture, wherein you're not really industrializing the whole effort of food growing and sustenance, but it's a very natural way where everything comes together and in harmony, generates food for not just humans, but for everything which is there in the ecosystem. So permaculture really operates on three practices. One is earth care, three values rather, or ethics. So one is earth care, second is people care, and the third is fair share. So earth care meaning before you take anything from the soil, you give to the soil first. So soil rejuvenation, water harvesting, and the nitrogen fixing, and everything falls under earth care. Then the second one is people care. People care meaning it's not just about me if I'm on a piece of land. It's about my community, because if my community grows, I grow too. And so it's about constant exchange with the community. So that's the second bit. The third is fair share. Fair share means everything, around the farm, all organisms are coming together in order to produce that single fruit, for example. Right? So it's not just me who has a share, who has the right to that fruit, but all organisms have a share to that fruit. So what I would do is on a permaculture farm typically is, if I, let's say, grow tomatoes, all right? So if I grow tomatoes, I'll ensure I'll take maybe 50% of the tomatoes for my own consumption and my family, or for whatever purpose, and the remaining 50% or maybe 25% I leave for the insects and the birds, or give it back as fodder and feed and so on and so forth. Right? Similarly, I do that with the community as well. So there's a good exchange of food or whatever is generated on the soil. So that's fair share. So that really is permaculture. So when you start living in harmony with everything, where everything is feeding into each other, and you're not just siloed where you're just consuming, but you're also giving back, and everything has a function in a permaculture system. So
Someone
that's
just
what it means.
asked, does going zero waste mean that the only waste we create is biodegradable?
Not necessarily. Not necessarily. For example, if you're so I've done this little video on understanding everyday packaging. So when you look at packaging, there is a huge mostly everything is plastic these days, right? So when I talk about zero waste living, it would mean that you very consciously see, okay, which packaging is recyclable versus which packaging is just going to go into the landfill. All right. So I pick packaging. Yeah, there is a symbol to it. So there's category 1 to 7 plastic. So you consciously pick category 1 and 2 and you leave the rest out, right? So what you can do then is once your category 1 and 2 plastic is over, which is your PET bottles or HDPE bottles, you can then give it to the kabadi wala so that it's recycled and recreated, repurposed into plastic pellets. So those plastic pellets can be reused to make more plastic instead of using petrochemicals or fossil fuel in order to get that. So that is also zero waste. Zero waste does not necessarily mean just biodegradable. It's best if it's that, but it's about reusing, repurposing, recycling as well. Recyclability of a product also, where you're not just looking at the end of life as just I finished the product and that's it. No, you're looking at it beyond that, meaning after it's finished, what is happening to it even after. So that's what zero waste means. Yeah.
So for those of you who just joined in, this is take 16 of Stories with Shastri, and we're talking to SIRAUTHIA, who is the founder of Swadharani, Conscious Living, and she's here to teach us about what sustainable living and zero waste actually means. If you have any questions,
that's a big word.
it is, but that's essentially what you're doing. So if you have any questions about going zero waste or living sustainably, you have to comment and let us know. Okay, so what were the first few changes you made to your daily routine, and which was the most difficult one to adapt to?
Sure. So I think I already mentioned it. So composting was the easiest. All right, because it's very straightforward. You know that whatever kitchen waste is left, it would mostly be your organic waste, right? So when I say organic waste, it is cooked food as well as raw food. Okay, so both are compostable. However, for us, because it was the first time we were doing it, we just went with just raw food. So that was the first thing that we tried our hands at, which is creating a compost pit. And these days, everything is available over the internet. So we just went, we Googled it, and we watched a few YouTube videos and so on. So we started with composting. That was the first bit. Along with that, we were also experimenting with a lot of food growing. So whatever, from the raw veg. One is that, because we were making compost at home, a lot of the plants and saplings would come from the compost itself because there would be a lot of seeds. But the other thing that we were doing is we were exchanging a lot of plants. So with Sudha Aunty, we would exchange a lot of plants. We would go to our favorite, pastime was just going to the nursery and getting plants. Or else, saving some chili so that we could, put the seeds or basil seeds and this, that and everything. So we were just experimenting a lot with food growing. That was the second bit. I think what I did personally was when I was very sure I wanted to do this is I started looking at my house and seeing, one was I looked at myself. I said, I want to do it first, and then is when I can start talking to it about with my family. Because you would know this, right? The worst people to change are your own people. So, or the most difficult to change are your own people. So I said, okay, let me just do it myself and then see. So I looked at, my environment and I said, okay, so there's the kitchen, there's the bathroom, there's my, my own space, which is my room, and then there is everything else. So then I started looking at one or two things here. There I said, okay, what are those things that directly I can handle and control in the kitchen? What directly I can handle and control in the bathroom, and so on. So that's where, the composting happened, the food habits changed. The second was when I looked at the bathroom, it was my own personal care products. So I started making my own body butter, my own toothpaste. So the first recipe that I experimented was the most common one, which is the soda and the coconut oil with some essential oil. And then I also experimented with my own, hair care, which was, I stopped using shampoos and this, that. So I just used the Rita Amla Shikakai, the regular one. So those were some of the changes that I made. And so the point being that, and then my cupboard, I went, so 333 is what I started using. I still remember very vividly, this bunch of friends coming home and then they see all of my clothes on the floor and they're like, are you going somewhere? Are you leaving the house? I said, no, I'm just, downsizing and going with 333. 33 sets of, or 33 accessories and clothes for 3 months. That's what I'm going to do, and that's my minimal take on it. So I'm still doing that. My cupboard is still very neatly arranged. It still has, I think, maximum 50 items of clothing and accessories, everything included. And I don't buy unnecessarily, and I'm happy with what what I have. And most of the stuff is cotton. So those are certain rules that I made for myself. And yeah, so these were a few shifts that I made. As a family, since everybody is very conscious about generating waste and this, that, so mostly they are in tune that, they have to, no ordering out, or if they order out, they say, can we pack this in a dabba of our own? Otherwise, mama will shout at home, and carrying our own bags. I think, yeah, carrying your own bag, that also was one of the simplest thing to do. So that's also we started. Yeah, that's where we are right now. To the extent that my bakery wala, which is right outside, to everybody else he supplies in packets, but for me he nicely wraps the loaf of bread in a paper patiently, and he asks me, do you want anything else in paper, or do you have your own dabba? So he now knows. So I've done that kind of relationship building with people around. Even the lady who supplies vegetables from her hydroponics farm, she tries to get me, in a paper cut bag instead of a plastic bag and so on. So yeah, so you just need to be very open about the fact that you're leading a lifestyle. Can you help with it? And most of the people are helpful. They understand.
So what was the most difficult change to adapt to?
Oh, it was getting the cereals and the pulses and the rice and the wheat.
Oh,
organic.
yeah.
You have these regular kirana stores which stock up on, khulla chutta groceries. But then getting organic from these groceries, or finding, package-free dal, chawal, and all of that, that's very difficult. So there are a couple of stores in Pune right now that have opened up, but still they're not very consistent with their supplies. So that's been the most difficult part. I still have to look at the plastic packaging most of the times, and I'm not happy with that. So, yeah, that.
Is that a little more difficult right now with the lockdown to find?
It is very difficult right now. Yeah, it is. So I've kind of let go of organic for now. So I have these 5 kg plastic bags that I've saved from the previous purchases. Those could be your, basmati rice packaging or something. And I have no shame in going and asking my neighbor, do you have like a 5 kg packet? Can I use it, please? So I just take them to the kirana store and I say, can you fill this for me? Or I take my dabbas with me and I say, can you fill this for me? So I've let go of the organic part for now. Yeah, so I think it's also being adaptive. At the same time, how much you can stay with your lifestyle. So
yeah, I think that's there too. What about, so you say that when you say conscious living, is conscious living different from sustainable living, or is it the same thing?
So they actually dovetail into each other, Sangha. So conscious living, if I have to, the way I understand it, is essentially mindful living, right? So where you're mindful of your choices, you're mindful of the consequences of your choices, and then you go ahead with that. So that's, mindful living, and I think that is what conscious living is also, where it's not just, I think a step ahead is the mindfulness also comes from the fact that you're empathetic to not just your own situation, but you're more inclusive. You are more inclusive to the surroundings, to the community, to the general ecosystems, to all other life on whatever surrounds you. So I think that is what conscious living is, and sustainable living, yes, it's being more mindful of your choices, of your lifestyle, and the consequences that have. Having said that, I do feel that it could become mainstream, and people don't necessarily have to be mindful or conscious if these options are available to them off the shelf and as and when they need, and are made more accessible. And right now, people don't have a choice, right? And so the choice is that you go to let's say a grocery store, and if you want to clean your toilets, you only have a Harpic.
Yeah.
Right, but let's say if the government comes down with a policy that it's not Harpic, we're not doing Harpic because it's or okay, I shouldn't be using maybe the brand name I don't care about. Okay, but we're coming up with we can't use these anymore because they're harming the ecosystems, and we only need a readily biodegradable or a gentler option for toilets, right? So then, even an unconscious person or person who doesn't know anything about any of this lifestyle will still go ahead and adopt it. Right? So while on one level it is about consciousness, and I think that is what is needed in order to push forth sustainable living, push forth policy changes, push forth lifestyle changes in people and communities. But after a given point in time, if there is enough adoption of this kind of a lifestyle, if there are enough alternatives and enough government focus on this, it could be something which even a person who's like an everyday person can take it up. You don't have to be mindful about it. It's just an option that you need to do.
Right. So in today's world, how would you, as of now, since we don't have a particular policy that pushes for this as strongly as we would hope, how would you explain sustainable living? Like, how do you define it? And how do you explain the need for living sustainably to someone whose lifestyle is actually quite the stark opposite?
That's really difficult because there's someone who said someone who said this, that a person who's asleep, you can wake that person up, but a person who's pretending to sleep, how do you wake that person up? Right? So, so I think it's that kind of a situation. I think everybody knows that the climate is changing. Everybody knows that there's enough pollution everywhere. Everybody knows that the rivers are gone, right? So, I think the gap is that they don't understand the impact of or enough information about why that is happening, because the blame is still that the industries are doing it. These big people are doing it. Nobody's saying, I am doing it every day. 30 liters of undiluted toxic waste from each household every year. That's the statistic. So if we're just able to hold back that 30 liters, and that 30 liters multiplied by 10 liters of water every day, because we're mixing it in so much water, right? And if you have a larger house, then of course you can multiply it by that much. But so that's the gap, I think. And hopefully there are enough people, enough organizations who would be working towards bridging that gap. So I think it's not about, so people know it. I think the people are just waiting for, there are several reasons, Sangha. There's the reason of price, there's the reason of access to such alternatives, there's the reason of, trust as well. And then there's the reason of people not knowing enough. So if we're able to address all four, I think we should be able to nail it. Otherwise, any one of these misses, and it'll be difficult. That's how I look at it.
We have a question that asks, how much do you see the alternative energy, especially the solar sector, increasing in India within the next decade?
I think there are already, the government has already rolled out subsidies and, certain incentives for using renewable resources or renewable energy. I don't know exactly, what is the percentage, but it is already in place. The thing now is that, it's a little expensive, and then it is away from your regular mainstream. So, and then there are not very many players as well in the field. So, with a push for the climate change, with a push for the climate change summit and the sustainability goals that that have been put together. I think we should see more and more adoption. But then again, with the whole pandemic, we're also seeing that the government is, going ahead with certain projects which are the opposite of saving the environment and ecology. So while we see, well, I've seen and I've read that there are these subsidies which are available, there are incentives which are available for renewable resources, and it's going to pick up. But at the same time, there are these indicators which tells that economy will take precedence over anything to do with energy or anything to do with environment. So I think we just need to wait and watch. I don't know. I don't want to predict anything on that. But I think, as individuals, we can definitely go ahead and look at those.
Alternative forms of energy, you say?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you have, so what, okay, how about this? Do you think there's enough information available for someone who wants to, make a little difference available online for them to start at home? Or is it something difficult to find because of so many sources and so many resources and the word organic being thrown around very lightly?
Yeah, that's a good question, Sandra. Yeah, there are enough resources available and there are enough people to guide as well. There's a growing community. For example, when I attended the permaculture program, I wasn't the only one, right? There were 25 other people, and these people were from urban centers. There were people from the rural centers as well, but there were a lot of people who were there from the urban centers. And then before that, 50 people had gone trained on permaculture. So it's a growing. So I'm one of the part of one of the permaculture groups on Facebook, and there are 50,000 people on that group, right? So it's not that there aren't enough resources, there aren't enough people. I think it's just a matter of individually how motivated are you to go ahead and look out for it. Okay, so if any of you is really interested, there are a lot of resources on sudharini.org. Sangha, if you can share the link with everyone. It really gives you, there are demo videos, there's information. We're running this 26 days of type, so 26 ideas of living sustainably. So we've already shared 14 ideas of living sustainably, and in the next few weeks we will be sharing the rest of them as well. If you really want to go ahead, just go ahead and explore those resources. There's YouTube, there is the internet, there are blogs. There are a lot of people who are doing that. So you're not alone in this. There's Swadharini on Insta as well. You can subscribe to that. I don't know. So, and there are a lot of other organizations like Swadharini who are doing that also. And yeah, so there is enough. Sangha.
So we have someone who's asked, how does a nation balance between economic progress and industrial development?
So thank you for that question, because so I do a lot of these posts on LinkedIn as well. So just to get the influential community who actually who are consultants to these big organizations and who are CEOs themselves and so on. So this was one of the questions that I posed to them, that can you ask not just what are my goals and objectives, but can you also go ahead and ask that these are my goals and objectives, but am I a part of the inner circle? So when I say inner circle, it means am I a part of the inner circle of the planet? Or do I consider myself to be, an alien being? As human, I'm alien, I'm not a part of the ecosystem. So, very interesting thing that came up was, during the discussions was, so far we've looked at industry and environment as two separate entities, right? But the idea about sustainability is, it's not this or that. It is about bringing the two together and seeing, how can it coexist. So one of the things about sustainability, and especially sustainable designs or designing for sustainable solutions, in whichever field, some of you would be designers, some of you would be industrial designers, some of you would be architects, some of you would be, you are in different fields. The point is that each field allows us to look at sustainability as an opportunity to solve a particular problem, right? And what that means is that can I keep cultural and social and environmental factors together in order to come up with a solution. And I'd like to recommend a very good book, and a book that I've read, and it's beautiful, and it introduces the concept of sustainability for environment as well as industries and economy is Cradle to Cradle. I don't know whether any of you have heard about it, but it's called Cradle to Cradle. The other book is Biomimicry, right? So if you look at everything that we've designed so far, everything mimics nature, right? So the solutions are there in nature. So when we look at economy, it's about coming up. What is economy really? It's about the industrial processes that we take, the pursuits that we take up for economic gains, and those pursuits are industrial in nature. They're services in nature, right? It's about services or industry, correct? So it's about, can you design that industry keeping environment as well in mind? A very good example is, if you look at Pune had this beautiful architecture, these varas and these homes and so on, right? Yeah. But can you see any of that in the modern day? Can you see any of those designs in the modern day? You can't, right? It's like a slab of a building which is rectangular, maybe just some conical shape coming out from somewhere or the other. But imagine if we could use that design, which took care that that during the summers it's going to be cool from the inside, during the winters it's going to be warm from the inside. There was a lot of science behind these buildings, behind these designs, right? The ventilation was taken care of and so on and so forth, right? Most of the roofs were such. Yeah, exactly. Imagine just adopting that cultural ethos, and then thinking about, okay, so can we use that in order to construct, let's say a building that can house 500 people? It's not difficult. It's a design challenge, right? And then instead of putting a slab roof, like a flat roof, it just absorbs heat, makes everything hotter all through the day. Using materials which just heats up everything. You need air conditioners, and those air conditioners throw out more heat in the environment. It's like a vicious circle, right? But these designs, the cultural designs, they always have all of this in mind. It's about adopting that. It's not about one size fits all. Sustainable design is about customizing it to culture, to the environment, and also the social aspect of that particular place, and then coming up with a particular design or a solution for it. But the problem is that and you can come to that only if you look at both together. When you try to marry the two, it's not either or, it is both together. You have to bring both together. And I think, I'm so happy that you brought this question up, because it kind of, I hope it's food for thought for all of you, whoever, the 7 people who are watching us right now, that, it is about bringing both together. It is not about either or. If you want to use a shampoo for your hair because you're getting split ends, it is not either or. Either you get a natural shampoo, or you can get a chemical-based shampoo which is packed in a PET bottle. It's about a combination. Choose a shampoo which is gentle, not just for your hair but also the environment, and there are options available. There are DIYs which are available. Just be ready to, look for a solution for the problems. That's all.
Yeah. So, do you think it's a lot of hard work to live sustainably when you're, from a generation that is so used to plastic and so used to convenience, and we're so used to plastic we've been used to it for decades in all our life. So, do you think it's a lot of hard work?
I would say yes, and I would say no. Yes, if if you do not have a clear demarcation of what is a need and a want, then it's very difficult. But if you know very clearly what is a need, what is your need, and you're okay to be with your needs, and you're okay to let go of things which are not essential for you, then it's not difficult at all. So, so it's a yes and a no. There's no straightforward answer to that, but depending on people. So if you have very little needs and your essentials is a very small list, I would say it's easy. But if you have an expansive list of desires and wants and essentials, then it's going to be a difficult journey for sure. But then, if you're willing to take that journey, even if it's difficult, so you can start looking at one thing at a time and ticking it off your list. It'll take longer, and you need more patience with yourself. And one of the things that I always say to people who want to go on a journey is just be patient with yourself. You can't go zero waste in the word go. It doesn't happen that way. You have to give yourself time. You have to prioritize what you want to let go, not let go. And as humans, I think it's okay for us to desire, to have non-essentials also as essentials. It's fine. It's very relative. But yeah, it can be a long drawn process. It will take more time. And that's it.
Okay, we have a question that says, do you think laws should be enacted to control the human population explosion to help environmental impact?
Yes, absolutely. I think if again, someone that I look up to had said, and I completely agree with it. With it is that if we've taken responsibility and if we've taken control of our death, then it's high time we took control and responsibility for the birth as well. So, yeah, we should.
That's a good one. What are the little changes that we can make in our daily routine, keeping in mind the pandemic now, but even beyond it and the lockdown? What are some changes we can make to our daily routine to make a little bit of a difference?
Okay, little bit of a difference. Two things. I can give you two things. Okay. The first thing is make a bioenzyme. It's very simple. Okay. Make a bioenzyme. A bioenzyme has the potential to replace your cleaning agents at home. It's one solution. It's like a what was that word? Brahmastra. It's like a brahmastra. So you can use it for cleaning, you can use it for hair, you can use it for your dishes, you can use it for your laundry. Okay, so one is just invest a little time, and it doesn't take much long. It just takes 10 minutes. You just need 3 ingredients. I'll share the link with Sanghamitra for the demo of it. Make one bioenzyme, experiment with it. The second thing I would say is that place, I'm not sure, this should be, by now, everyone should be doing this, which is place a bag in your two-wheeler or in your four-wheeler. Just place one, your cloth bag for your shopping, just in case you feel like, I need to go shopping today. I know most of us we are in a lockdown and we can't go out, but still, as the movies are going to start, just do that bit, which is invest in a good cloth bag. Other than that, I think, these two things. I said only two. There are more that I can share, but right now I'll just share these two. The bioenzyme for sure, because it really helps reducing the toxicity levels that enters as well as leaves your home. So do that.
The basic ingredients, if you could quickly tell us.
Yeah, so the basic ingredient is essentially the fruit waste from your kitchen. So it would be your fruit peels. So when you say fruit peels, look at citric fruit peels like your lemon peels or your orange peels or pineapple peels, watermelon peels. Do not go for anything which could be colored like a beetroot or a papaya or a banana and all of that. Don't go for that because it could, the smell could be a little off and also it leaves stains. But you can go for the citric options. You need jaggery powder. If you can't find jaggery powder, molasses is fine or else brown sugar. And then the third is water. Just these 3 ingredients. But you will need patience because it takes 90 days. The first batch takes 90 days, but the subsequent batches take around 20 to 30 days, not more than that.
Okay. Someone just asked, I understand the antenatal argument too, which is in tandem with the previous question that we had. But wouldn't birth regulation rights infringe reproductive rights? What do you have to say about that?
Birth regulation rights infringe reproductive rights. I'm sorry, it's out of my. I need to read up about it. So someone had asked me on my opinion. I just shared it, but I need to read up about what rights these are. I don't
I'm
know.
listening to reproductive rights in the sense of the right to, be able to just say, okay,
Reproduce.
I have the right to reproduce. Yeah.
Yeah, of course, go ahead and reproduce, but
Sorry.
so again, it's a difficult question to answer. My view could be very different from another person's view. So it's about being mindful that the reason, if you want to have one child, I mean, fine. If you want to have two children, okay. If you want to have three children, so okay. Here's the deal. So one child, I understand. I have one child, okay, and I love him to bits, okay. Okay, I'll not get into the history, but yeah, I have one child and I love him to bits. The moment everyone started talking to me about the second child, the reason was given was, you need a person who can, play with your first one.
Yeah.
Who will give him company when you were gone? And, the reasons really did not make any sense to me. That is also the reason that a lot of other parents give, that, it's company for the first child, for the other child. I don't know. I don't buy into that explanation. Is the person going to be a better person than you are as an individual? Is the person going to make, an impact more than you've made in your lifetime? Go ahead, as many children, because we need people like those. But if the child is going to be just, a replication of what we are, if they're better than us, absolutely, go ahead. If they're the same as us, the same kind of mistakes that we're making right now. I know it's a little harsh, but that's what I feel, and I hope it's a candid conversation. You can edit it out. You can pause me right now. You can throw me out of the conversation.
No, that's not a problem. So we have a question saying, can this bioenzyme be used in washing machines?
Of course, it can be used in washing machines. Yes, it can be. So bioenzyme is really it's an enzyme, right? Your vinegar is an enzyme, but this one is more diverse than a vinegar. And vinegar is used like for mopping. It's used for dishes. It's used for laundry with a good essential oil. So yes, it can be used for washing machine. The only thing is that you may want to use soap nuts as one of your ingredients if you want to use it for washing machines, because there will be some saponification, meaning you'll see some lather and some cleaning activity with it. So yeah, it can be used for washing machines as well.
Okay, what are your thoughts on veganism?
Vegan. I have no thoughts on veganism. I have thoughts on veganism as a sustainable lifestyle. Okay, so I look at it from sustainability perspective. If you're a vegan, okay, and you're getting all of these fruits and vegetables, packed in these single plastic packets, like one capsicum in one packet.
What's the point?
What's the point of being a vegan? Right? So I look at it from that perspective. For me, I mean, you can be a vegan. You can also be a non-vegetarian you can be a non-vegetarian. You can have eggs, you can have meat, right? But at the same time, have you thought about, the before and after of that meat? How it was produced? Was it produced using sustainable practices? And how is it going to get disposed of tomorrow? Right? So for me, it's that question. It is not about. So I don't have any thoughts on veganism, honestly. I'm a vegetarian. I don't even eat eggs, but I use dairy. And while I know that dairy is something that if I'm a naturalist, then dairy doesn't make sense, because it's something that is for the calf or something for the animal's baby. I'm not an animal baby, I'm a human baby, and therefore the milk that I got was more suitable to me. So from that perspective, I understand it, but at the same time, I think that's where the cultural and the social ethos also come into play. So I don't have anything to comment about when it comes to veganism, except the fact that if it's a sustainable process, it's grown sustainably and it's disposed of sustainably, go ahead.
Okay. So I recently saw, actually last night in fact, I was on Pinterest and I love my Pinterest, and there was this little bit because, like I told you, I was trying to bring some life to dead soil in my house. So somehow my Pinterest decided to show me this little chart about how you can look at leaves and you can decide, what is wrong with them, whether there's a zinc deficiency or a potassium deficiency or a nitrogen deficiency or calcium, and you put it up and you can add particular types of waste to it, for example, remove them. Is that something that actually works?
It does work because it's a controlled, your pot is a controlled environment. Right, and the reason I talked about diversity earlier, from permaculture perspective, is because when you look at diversity, it means different nutrition is coming together, right? So if one plant is high on consuming nitrogen, there would be another plant that would be growing next to it, which would be a nitrogen fixer, and so on. But if we look at urban gardening or gardening in our balconies, for example, or gardening in pots, because that's what we do. It's a controlled environment, and therefore the nutrition in the soil may not be very high, right? And if we're growing a particular kind of plant in that, say for example, if we have rows and rows of tomatoes in it, right? Yeah. So there would be a certain deficiency of a certain nutrient that the tomato plant requires, right? So that's where multiple planting comes into play, or companion planting comes into play. So with a tomato, plant basil, for example, in the same pot, right? And that's where you can't overpopulate the tomatoes as well. So right now I have a pot, and it's a big pot, but at the same time the last time I transplanted the tomatoes into it, I put 5 together, and now the ones at the back, they're taller, and the ones in the front, they're suffering. So which means I need to remove them and place them in a separate pot. Right. So a lot of, yes, you're right. You can actually make up for the deficiencies. So not just meat and all of this, it's buttermilk. You can use buttermilk. You can use coffee. Coffee is the most common, I think, that you would have heard. Coffee ground, yeah. You put coffee in the, especially plants like rose, they love coffee. And so you just plant, you look at companion planting. So you grow different plants together so that they're helping each other out with the nutrition. Then you don't need, these kind of options as well, because they look after each other. And the other part is whatever dry leaf or whatever comes off the pot, you just leave it there, because that acts as mulch and also increases the organic content of the soil, right? So when it's mulch essentially is where you're covering the soil layer with another layer of organic material. It could be straw, it could be coconut coir, it could be a fruit and vegetable waste, it could be grass, not green grass, okay, but dry grass. So what you're doing is you're retaining the soil moisture in it, and at the bottom there is humus also creating, because there's decomposition happening of the mulch on the top. And also it is bringing back nutrients to the soil. So when you're potting, yes, go ahead for those, but at the same time you also have these practices which help you maintain the soil quality. So one is companion planting, the second is mulching, and the third is compost. You create your own compost at home. So there are enough ways of composting, even meat. You can compost meat and you can use that in your soil. So yeah, what you read was right. In essence.
But I'm still confused. How does coffee help?
How does coffee help? You just put it in the soil. I think it's a carbon content in coffee. I need to research a little more, but I know that it also helps. So for me, essentially everything goes in the compost pit. So I've not really looked at individual what nutrients and everything. But I know that if my tomato has a tomato rot, has a rot something, which then I need to put some calcium in it, so I put some buttermilk in it. So yeah, just.
How difficult was it? So this is my last question for today. Is that how was it challenging to help or introduce this concept and make your previous generation accept it, or was it more difficult to get the next generation to accept it? For example, your parents and Vedant, your son.
It was difficult for my parents, very difficult for my parents and my in-laws as well. To even moving to organic was very difficult, and I think there it was more trust issue. So more than anything, one is that they were habitual of doing things, and then the second was trust, which is how do you know this is going to be organic? And if you're buying it, right? How do you know it's organic? So yes, it's difficult to explain it to them. I think that's where you need to put your foot down, and you try all sorts of ways, and some are gentle ways, some are stern ways. But if you yourself are very clear about what you want to do and how you want to live, it becomes easier. And especially if you're able to demonstrate that lifestyle, that it's possible to do it, it becomes easier. Yeah. With Vedant, because I think right now there's so much in the media, in the news, and there's a lot of information that's going out from various sources. And plus, he's been seeing me, through his growing up years. He knows that we can't get plastic. We can't use plastic dabba. It has to be the glass or steel. We can't use any. He reads packaging actually. He reads the packaging and he says, "Does it have an FSSAI?" Yeah. And the second question that he asks, "Can you tell me what chemical this is?" So he reads the packaging, and that's because he's seen me doing it. So he's okay with it. In fact, he helps me also sometimes when I'm stuck with something, and I say, "Vedant, what should I do now?" He tries to help me problem solve it, especially when it comes to the product side of Swadharini. And so yeah, he's quite aware, quite tuned in. Yeah. So it's easier with him, but with the previous generation, it took a little time.
I think it will take some time for everybody.
Yeah.
That brings us to the end of this. Thank you so much for agreeing to do this for me.
You're welcome.
So much fun, and I learned a lot. I mean, I didn't the coffee thing. I'm going to look up now.
Yeah, do look up coffee, and do look up. There are people who make. I haven't tried that, but they make compost with prawn and whatever shrimp and fish waste that is left, and that's high on minerals. So that also is made. But yeah, go ahead.
Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming. All of you,
You're welcome.
check
Thank
out
you so much.
on Instagram. Yes.
Thank you so much, Sanghamitra, for having me here. It was a joy. Thanks everyone for being there, and all the best for your sustainable journey. If you have any questions, please feel free. I think it's okay if you want to connect with me. Sanghamitra can share the contact, and do try the bioenzyme and the bag. Okay.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
So that was Anu, and I hope you enjoyed this one. I tried to sit on my bed today, but I'm still trying to figure out, how to fix the size of the phone, because if I can do this, or if I do this, I'll have to hold on to it. I don't know. But Anu can be reached at Swadharini, which is SWADHARANI. I'll be tagging her on this post. And check out her work, and if you have any questions, she's always going to be there to help. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this session and had fun.